3, 2, 1. See ya.
So after a string of close calls and sadly a recent fatality, I thought perhaps now was a good time to put together a short video just passing on all the lessons that I've learned in my first 70 or so ski base. I've definitely made some mistakes and I hope that by sharing them with you now, I can help prevent anybody from repeating them again in the future. Ski base is definitely one of the best things I've ever done.
That was the best thing I've ever done in my life.
It is incredibly fun, but it is also a lot more dangerous than regular base jumping. And I've seen a lot of people attempting their first jumps here without really understanding what they're getting into. So if you've been thinking about making your first ski base, I've put together what I think are the 8 most important things you need to know. It's not going to be a how-to on ski base. I just want to highlight the main dangers that I've seen people missing when making their first jumps here. If you are serious about making your first jump, then please go with somebody who knows what they're doing. That experience is invaluable, and as always with base jumping, you don't know what you don't know. So go with somebody who knows what they're doing. If you're here in the valley, you're more than welcome to hit me up. If I can help you in any way, then I will. All right, let's go. Rule number 1, be competent. This may seem like a pretty obvious rule, but it is the first thing that people always ask me: how good do I need to be at skiing before I can do my first ski base? And the answer is, you need to be good. And you need to be good at skiing off-piste in all sorts of conditions, going fast, staying in control. Train everything from the powder to the park until being on your skis feels like second nature, but keep in mind that park jumps are going to be nothing like a real ski base. Being a ninja on skis is going to help reduce the risk of getting into trouble, and being a ninja slider down base jumper is going to help you get out of trouble when it inevitably comes. Point 2, choose your gear carefully. Again, this seems like an obvious rule, but it is one that I see people miss all the time. So, skis. Obviously, you want to ski in the skis that you are most comfortable with, but you should consider that the longer, the heavier, and the wider your skis, the harder they're going to be to control in the air, and the worse they're going to make things when you go unstable or you have an off-heading. You should consider whether your skis have brakes, as they probably do, and whether you want them there on your jump. As you see in this video, my friend has ended up with his skis in his lines. He does have brakes on his skis. He could easily have snagged them on the lines, but he got lucky. This is the only video we've got of this jump, but it's exactly the same situation. Skis in the lines with brakes on the skis. This time, my friend's brakes did snag on his lines. It resulted in a cliff strike and a heli rescue. Here you can see the skis that I use for ski base. They're really light, a bit shorter, a bit thinner than I would normally use, but that I'm still happy to ski in all conditions off-piste in, and they've got a binding setup without any brakes. It can be very difficult to get back from a ski base exit once you've skied down to it, so make sure you've thought about everything. You've probably not jumped in your ski clothes before, so make sure that they're all good to go. People always ask me, what should I do with my gloves? Make sure you've thought about that before you get to the exit. And lastly, think about how fast you expect to be leaving the edge and what kind of pilot chute you think you would need to deploy at that speed. Rule 3, always check your DIN settings. Now, this one I think is really important, so I've given it its own rule. Make sure you check your DIN settings before you set off your jump. Out of the last 2 videos we saw, one of them landed safely, the other one had a cliff strike and a helicopter rescue. The only difference between the 2 were the DIN settings. The friend of mine we saw in the second videos didn't want to lose his skis, so he cranked his DIN settings up to the max. Then when his skis got stuck in his lines, they didn't come off. The other friend you see here had his DIN settings set correctly. His skis ended up in his lines, but his skis came off, and that is very likely the only reason that he was able to land safe. So, really important, check your DIN settings before you set off. Rule 4 is choose your exit carefully. Choose an exit that allows you to bail out if you need to. Both of these are very steep and neither of them give you an opportunity to bail out. Once you start skiing, you are completely committed to the jump. For your first jump, choose an exit with a nice flat section so you have the opportunity to bail out if you get into any trouble. You can see here our local Lauterbrunnen exit. It's got a nice steep run in to build up speed. It's got a nice flat section so you've got plenty of time to bail out if things don't feel right, and it's got a nice flat exit. I was out on a mission recently, and because of poor snow conditions, I could only take a line that was slightly off center from the perfect run-in. And even that small deviation put me a lot closer to the cliff and a lot closer to a ledge. And I see this all the time in Lauterbrunnen when I get to the ski base exit and I see tracks of people who've taken what looks like from the top the best line. But actually, if you went down to the edge and checked, you'd realize that the cliff was at an angle and you actually want to come in at 45 degrees from the left. Always make sure you check the cliff and you really know exactly the angle that you want to leave at. Go to the edge and then make a trail back. That not only ensures you've got a nice smooth run in, but it gives you a line to follow so you can make sure you definitely exit in the right direction. Also consider the angle of the terrain. A very steep slope makes it almost impossible to do a stable exit. This exit you see here has such a steep run in that I decided to do a front flip instead of a stable exit. My friend who followed me tried to make a stable exit, ended up head low and in a very similar situation to the last two videos we saw. Rule number 5, always check the edge. I broke this rule one time and I will never do it again. It was at the exit we were looking at before. It's got a really steep run in. I was too scared to go down and check the very edge. Plus I'd been there loads of times in the summer and I thought I knew exactly where the edge was. But in the last second before I got to the very edge, I saw that there was an exposed rock that I could have clipped my skis on and could have sent me tumbling off the edge. So I tried to jump over it to avoid it, which completely messed up my front flip. I ended up going too slowly, pitching at a bad time, having a 180, it was a mess. Unfortunately, my camera was on POV mode, so I didn't really get a very good video of it, but you can see enough here.
Well, that was interesting.
The moral of the story is that the rock wasn't actually in the way. If I'd have gone down to the edge and checked, I would have known that, but it threw me off at the worst time and ended up putting me in a dangerous situation. So always check the edge. The next time I did this cliff, I did abseil down, I did check the edge, I saw that it wasn't a problem and my jump went perfectly. Point 6, go handheld. Please go handheld. On my first jump I didn't, I went stowed, I went too slow, it was done. On my third jump I also went stowed and I ended up going head low and losing both my skis. I spent the next 15 jumps doing nothing but handhelds until I was happy with my exit. Going handheld allows you to get that canopy out just a bit quicker if you go off axis, and it's actually really hard to stay on axis on a ski base. No matter what you do, you always seem to go a little bit forwards or a little bit backwards, and it will surprise you how quickly you start to rotate once it goes. So being handheld can be the difference between having a nice opening or ending up with your skis in your lines. So please, first jumps, go handheld. Also think about your handheld setup. It's going to be slightly different from a regular handheld base jump. Are you going to have your pin flap open or closed? Are you going to leave the bridle tucked or are you going to have it completely exposed? Because I've seen plenty of people skiing with their handheld setup and their bridle making a big loop behind them back to their pin, flapping in the wind. Can you imagine if that pin popped just as you went off the edge and your canopy ended up landing on the back of your skis or bouncing off the cliff edge? Point 7, don't jump. And I don't mean don't ski base, you should definitely ski base, it's really fun. But don't jump when you get to the edge. Unless you've been hitting 100-meter cliffs and you've been landing standing flat, you've got no idea what it's actually going to feel like to do a ski base. Leaning forwards and going head low is the absolute worst thing you can do on a ski base, as you've seen in some of these other videos. But leaning backwards isn't particularly great either. You really want to be in an upright position, and it is a lot harder than you expect to stay in that position. Once you end up a little bit forwards or a little bit backwards, that's only going to get worse, and if you've jumped, you are only going to make it get worse faster. So my advice would be don't jump. Last one is point 8. Separation is not guaranteed. Speed is your friend and you should go fast, but the idea that the faster you go, the more separation you have is actually a bit of a myth. Yes, if you open on heading, you are going to have a lot of separation, but you have to think that your canopy is now coming out almost directly behind you. And so when you have a 180, your nose isn't facing the wall, the nose is facing straight down, and that means your canopy opens facing down and you pendulum underneath it, swinging back towards the cliff. You can see here in this cliff in Lauterbrunnen that I exit with a lot of speed, have an on heading and have a lot of separation. But you can also see here my friend, who is an experienced ski base jumper, exits with a lot of speed, has a 180 and comes uncomfortably close to the cliff. So just because you're exiting with speed, don't think that's making it safer and that it's going to guarantee you separation from the wall when you have an off heading. So So that's it. Those are the 8 things that I think are the most important to know before you make your first ski base. I hope that helps some of you. I hope you enjoyed watching some of my fuck ups, and I hope we can keep enjoying ski base safely for many years to come. Thanks for watching.
Oh, mate. Oh, that was really nice.